August 18th, 2005. A clear, quiet night in the mountains of Provo, Utah. No signs of storm clouds or wind, just the usual silence of the Wasatch Range whispering through the rocks. But somewhere on the side of Y Mountain, deep within a hidden crevice known to locals only by nickname, a small group of friends stepped into what would become one of the most harrowing and fatal cave incidents in recent American history. They thought it was safe. They thought they'd come back out with just another story to tell. But they didn't. And the cave? Locals now call it the Cave of Death. Others, Gollum's Cave. Either way, the name doesn't matter anymore. What happened inside sealed its fate forever. 5 friends, 4 bodies, 1 survivor, a narrow underwater tunnel no wider than a crawl space, a pitch-black chamber with just enough air to breathe, a silent, deadly trap, all hidden beneath a mountain where students hike, families picnic, and no one ever suspects what lies below. This is the Shelter Cave disaster. They walked up the mountain around 3 a.m. That's already one red flag for most people. Why 3 a.m.? For these 5 friends, J. Blake Donner, 24, Jennifer Galbraith, 21, Scott McDonald, 28, Ariel Singer, 18, and Joseph Ferguson, 26. The darkness wasn't the enemy. It was part of the experience, the adrenaline, the challenge. See, this wasn't just a cave. It was a known dare. Hidden under a manhole-style entrance, this place had been explored by only the boldest. Just a small, narrow shaft that led to a tight chamber and a nearly impossible passage, a water-filled tunnel no more than 15 feet long, fully submerged. You had to dive under, no scuba tanks, no ropes, and no guide, just breath-hold swimming, flashlights, and hope. The reward? A hidden air pocket chamber on the other side, 2 to 3 feet of breathing room above the water. Tight, yes. Claustrophobic, sure. But that's what made it thrilling. Or so they thought. Joseph Ferguson waited at the entrance. He never entered the submerged tunnel. Maybe it was a gut feeling. Maybe it was caution. Whatever it was, it saved his life. He waited outside the narrow opening. The others disappeared into the darkness. They told him they'd be back quickly. Maybe 10, 15 minutes. But minutes passed, then more, and still silence. No screams, no panic. Just nothing. By 6:25 a.m., Ferguson called the police. Rescue teams rushed to the scene. They lowered themselves into the cave, squeezed through the narrow shaft, and prepared to enter the same underwater passage. Divers had to go in, experienced ones. What they found would stay with them forever. The air was thick with silence, the kind that doesn't just settle, it presses down on you. The divers moved inch by inch, their gear scraping against the cold rock walls as they pushed deeper into the submerged passage. The water, though motionless, felt heavy, like it carried the weight of what had already happened inside. Flashlights pierced the blackness, but only gave a few feet of visibility. Every shadow looked like it could be someone. Every ripple felt like a breath, but there were no cries for help, no flickers of movement, only stillness. The team followed the tunnel to the small air pocket chamber on the other side, where they found discarded items, a floating flashlight, a shoe, a backpack pressed against the cave wall, waterlogged and silent. Then, one by one, they saw the bodies. It was clear from their positioning. They had fought to live, fingernails scratched along the limestone. A camera hung from a strap, untouched. Someone had been trying to film, maybe to document the moment. Or maybe it was just habit, like people do on trips. Either way, it never got turned off. One diver later said it felt like stepping into a frozen moment in time, like the cave had paused everything at the exact second things went wrong. They couldn't reach them in time, not because they were slow, but because by the time help was called, it was already far too late. These weren't people who drowned from being deep underwater for long. They drowned feet away from air. That's what crushed the rescue team the most. The proximity. The fact that they were right there. So close to life, but a blocked tunnel, disorientation, and the unforgiving nature of confined space made it impossible. One of the rescuers reportedly didn't speak for days after the operation. Another, a seasoned diver with over 200 rescues under his belt, called it the most emotionally difficult mission he'd ever been part of. The tragedy wasn't just in the loss, it was in how preventable it had been. No structural collapse, no raging current, just a moment where panic met impossibility. And in that moment, the cave claimed 4 lives, quietly, without mercy. 4 bodies, all facing the same direction, all pointed toward the exit. The image is impossible to forget. People frozen in place, desperate to escape, mere feet from air, but blocked. That's the tragedy. It appeared that the group had made it to the air chamber. That part of the journey likely went as planned, but the trouble came on the way back, and the timeline of what happened inside tells a silent, chilling story. The cave's entrance tunnel wasn't just tight, it was unforgiving, narrower than most household crawl spaces. With only one way in and one way out. If even one person hesitated, panicked, or got stuck, the others behind would have nowhere to go. No space to turn around, no visibility. And above all, no air. Reports suggest the first person trying to return, possibly Jennifer Galbraith, became disoriented and didn't make it through. Her body may have lodged in the narrow tunnel. The others behind her had seconds to realize what was happening. But in the darkness, water, and panic, those seconds weren't enough. It likely began with just a slight delay. Maybe she couldn't find the entrance back into the tunnel. Maybe her flashlight flickered or turned the wrong way. In a confined space like that, there's no room for trial and error. One wrong movement, and you're suddenly facing solid rock instead of the hole you came through. The exit was just 15 feet away, but in murky water, without lines or markers, it might as well have been a mile. If she turned even slightly off course, she could have easily missed the passage completely. And when she did, and the air in her lungs began to burn, instinct would have taken over. That's when mistakes happen. She might have tried to turn back, kicked against the walls, maybe even reversed into the tunnel without realizing she was blocking it. And behind her, panic would have set in. Imagine trying to swim through a space no wider than your shoulders only to find it completely blocked. The diver behind would have felt the resistance, pushed forward, thinking maybe Jennifer just needed help. But in that moment, the water turned from silent to suffocating. Flashlights waving, air running out, no way to speak, no way to reverse. It became a chain reaction of desperation. Each person behind her had only moments to decide, wait, push, or turn back. But there was no room to turn. There was no plan B. The passage was a single-lane tunnel, and once someone got stuck, it sealed the fate of everyone behind. Some may have tried to backpedal to feel for another way out, only to hit rock. Others might have thought they were going the right way, only to be swimming in circles in the black. Disorientation turned to panic. Panic turned to silence, and one by one, the hope of escape was cut off. The sad irony? If Jennifer had made it through, if she had just managed to find the tunnel and clear it, the others might have had a chance. But instead, her body became the first unmovable barrier. Not by choice, not by fault, just by the cruel design of that space. She didn't trap them, the cave did. It was the design of the tunnel, the lack of visibility, the razor-thin margin for error. And in that dark, airless corridor, seconds turned fatal. They couldn't back up, they couldn't pass, and they couldn't breathe. Investigators later found that the cave's far chamber likely had low oxygen levels, possibly from candles they lit while inside. When air's already tight, burning candles just makes it worse. Combine that with the cold water, disorientation, and fear, and it's a recipe for hypoxia and panic. The rescue team didn't just recover bodies, they pieced together a sequence of horror. A moment-by-moment collapse of hope, a group who made it in and never found the way out. Even experienced divers will tell you it's not the depth that gets you, it's the narrowness. The margin for error is razor thin. Miss your timing, drop your flashlight, or block a passage, and it becomes a coffin. And these weren't reckless kids, they weren't thrill seekers with a death wish. They were BYU students and young adults, curious, bright, brave, and sadly unaware of just how dangerous this cave really was. For years, Gollum's Cave had been talked about in whispers. No official signs, no formal warnings. Locals knew it was there and knew it was dangerous, but the cave wasn't sealed or policed. Urban legend met reality and the mountain kept its secrets. That changed after this. Immediately after the recovery, Provo city officials moved fast. They sealed the cave permanently, concrete, rocks, blocked forever. A memorial plaque was placed nearby, but the entrance is gone. What remains is just the story. And what a story it is. Imagine swimming in a space so tight you can't move your arms. Imagine holding your breath, knowing you only have 20 seconds left and not seeing where to go. That's not adventure, that's a nightmare. Rescue divers train for years to do what these friends attempted. They use guidelines, spare air tanks, redundant lights. This group had none of that, and yet they went in anyway. Why? For the thrill, the story, the dare. But that's the trap. The danger wasn't just the cave, it was the illusion of safety. The belief that if others have done it, so can we. And that's what turned this small crevice in the side of a mountain into a tomb. The cave didn't collapse. There was no earthquake, no monster in the dark. Just time, water, and one wrong move. And now a question hangs in the air. If Joseph Ferguson had gone in with them, would he have blocked the exit too? Would they all have died? Or was it his hesitation that saved him? Maybe the lesson isn't about fear. It's about awareness, about understanding that some places don't give second chances, that some hidden wonders are best left unexplored. There's a fine line between curiosity and danger, and that line is often invisible until it's too late. The cave didn't look threatening from the outside. In fact, it looked almost boring. A simple manhole cover leading into the earth. No flashing signs, no rumbling sounds, no foul stench or ominous warnings. And that's the danger. The most lethal places rarely advertise themselves. They're quiet, still, unassuming. That's what lures people in. What happened in that cave wasn't the result of recklessness. It was the tragic product of not knowing just how quickly things could spiral. And that's the part that hits hardest. This wasn't a stunt. It was supposed to be an adventure, a memory, something to laugh about over breakfast the next morning. But caves like that don't care about plans. They don't care how experienced someone is or how many times others have made it in and out. One misstep, one hesitation, one wrong breath, and the cave becomes something else entirely. It's not about being brave enough, it's about being informed enough. Because awareness isn't fear, it's power. It's the difference between exploring with respect and entering with blind confidence. And in places like that, Ngwijki narrow, water-filled, and pitch black, confidence can kill. What looks like a 15-foot swim is actually a test of breath control, orientation, mental focus, and pure luck. No margin for panic, no margin for backup. These are the environments that demand more than courage. They demand preparation, gear, planning, and often professional guidance. But the thing is, that night on the mountain wasn't meant to be extreme. It was supposed to be a shared experience between friends. No one thought they wouldn't make it out. That's why this story matters, because it could happen to anyone who underestimates a space designed to trap, not to welcome. Not all beautiful places are meant to be visited. Some are beautiful because they're untouched and should stay that way. It's not weakness to walk away, it's wisdom. And if this story teaches anything, it's that walking away isn't missing out, it's surviving. The Shelter Cave disaster, or Gollum's Cave if you still want to call it that, was a tragedy waiting to happen. And on August 18, 2005, it did. Today, the mountain is quiet again. Hikers pass by without knowing what happened under their feet. The cave is sealed, but the story remains. And it's a story worth telling, not for the thrill, not for the mystery, but so no one else makes the same mistake. Some caves are just too dangerous, not because of monsters or myths or movies, but because they test limits that shouldn't be tested. These young people didn't go into that cave expecting to die. They just wanted to explore, to experience something different. They weren't foolish. They were just unaware of how little room there was for error. And that's all it takes. Let this story be more than a headline. Let it be a reminder. For climbers, hikers, explorers, curiosity is good, but safety is everything. Rest in peace to those lost in the Shelter Cave. May their story help protect others from making the same decision. If this story resonated or left you thinking, help us spread awareness. Drop a comment, share this with someone who loves the outdoors or who might take a risk without realizing the cost. And if you want more real stories like this, true survival, disaster, and cautionary tales, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next.